Well, we have late start tomorrow, 9:25. It's great.
Had I known, I would have made you wait, but now I'll let you go anyway.
Scratch that.
Good evening and welcome.
Hi, my name is Gabe Murnoff. I'm a senior at Classical High School in Providence, and I'm here with the Rhode Island Coalition Against Gun Violence. And I'm here to talk about the assault weapons ban. But first, I'd like to thank the Judiciary Committee for allowing me to speak here today on this really important issue. Students really do need to be heard on matters of gun violence because obviously, as we've seen from Sandy Hook to Parkland, this issue does really affect us personally, perhaps more than any other societal issue. The proposed ban on assault weapons is one of the quickest and easiest ways to begin going about solving gun violence problems in the United States. It's well documented that the United States experiences significantly more mass shootings and overall homicides than the rest of the industrialized world combined, as has been made very clear tonight. And the explanation for why isn't complex. Time after time, future mass shooters are able to capitalize on some of the world's loosest gun laws to purchase military-style automatic weapons in order to bring terror to innocent civilians, often children and teachers. We need to take action because students like me all across the country are wondering if they're next. Why should I and so many other students be practically the only ones in the industrialized world that have to constantly fear being the next victims of gun violence when there's so many relatively easy and proven remedies right at our fingertips? And I think this is a good time to point out that there's been a lot of talk tonight, and if you talk to students, I think it's very important to see what students are saying on this. We do not want guns in schools. We do not want teachers with guns. There are some, this is a separate issue, of course, with teachers, but there are some teachers that I can tell you, even at Classical High School, which is supposed to be the best school in the state or whatever, there are a lot. Okay, it is the best school in the state. Yeah, okay, well, it's subjective, which is fine. Oh, okay. Well, it is. Okay, fine, it is.
We're in the ancient history book, though.
Yeah, right. But there are certainly some teachers that I would not want going to school with guns, although this is a separate issue. But we have to realize what students are saying on this, and I think it's extremely important. And a lot of the people here today are on both sides are certainly on the older side, and I think it's important for everybody to see what the young people are saying. What the young people are saying is that we're scared. More guns is not the solution, whether we're talking about automatic rifles or whether we're talking about handguns. Instead of getting bulletproof glass and taking other steps to turn our schools into military fortresses, we need to address the problem at its source and at the root. As has been alluded to an extent, including by the mayor, from 1994-2004, when assault weapons were banned in the United States, both the number of and the death count from mass shootings were way down. Compared to the decade before, 84 to 94, the number of mass shootings was decreased in comparison by 33%. Compared to the decade after, they were down 200% from 04 to 14, or compared to 2004-2014. And overall, countries and U.S. states that have stricter gun laws have significantly lower rates of deaths resulting from gun violence. So this is like everybody's talking about evidence. There's a whole lot of evidence to say that if you have stricter gun laws with the assault weapons ban, then you will have lower rates of gun violence. And it's not a very hard causation to prove. The issues surrounding gun violence are very complex, but there are many areas where we can easily make a difference in making civilians and especially students feel safer in their learning environments. Student activism across the country in response to the Parkland shooting is sending a very clear message. Now more than ever, it's very important for politicians and all leaders to look after the needs and the interests of their constituents, especially the most vulnerable students, who often are not paid attention to because, of course, they can't vote, and when they do turn 18, they often don't vote, and unfortunately that's the case. When people don't vote, they don't get as much attention. And the last thing I want to address is that with the assault weapons ban, a lot of people are saying, like I heard Senator Marco Rubio say this on the national stage, that it's very hard to define it, and some people have alluded to this here tonight. Yes, it is very hard to define, and this is a very complicated issue, but does that mean we just give up? We just say, okay, we're just not going to do anything. AR-15s are continuously used in these mass shootings. They're continuously the weapon of choice. So let's just give up and call it a day, and let's not even try. It's going to be very difficult, and as people have said, this is going to be a very long process. But let's not say, oh, just because something's complicated, let's run away from it. Let's we need to come together and listen to students, and we need to take action. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Jabour.
Thank you very much, Gabe. Thank you for coming. You've held classical in its general esteem. Very well done. And I'm going to ask you, because you're speaking on behalf of the students who would also be a stakeholder in this type of legislation. You know, we're hearing from the pros and the cons of gun owners in various groups, but the input of the student and the teacher is very important, and you've brought that to light here. I like your point about the fact that you feel that students probably do not want teachers to carry guns, which is comparable to what Senator Metz said. When we get to high school, I know growing up in a family of 7, having a strict mom, high school became my freedom area because now I was out of the house and playing an athlete and studying. So, but tell me, we've discussed enhanced school security. We've talked about even everything from lockdown to various types of bulletproof windows and guards. What are the students? What's the reaction by the students when you talk about that issue?
It's very complex because I'm a member of the Providence Student Union.
Yep.
And we've actually had a lot of discussions about this, about whether certainly we all agree that we don't want teachers with guns. And when I say we all, of course, I'm not speaking for 100% of students, but I'm talking about the Providence Student Union and the vast majority of Providence Public High School students. Certainly, we know that we don't want, if anybody were to have a weapon, it would be, of course, we want it to be a school resource officer or a police officer. Of course, the goal is, because if you look at other countries, I mean, we're all the same species as everybody in other countries. It's not like it's anything different, and they do not need to have anything close to the amount of militarization that we have. And these, of course, are other complex issues, militarization of the police and everything else. That said, it's very complicated because we, of course, want security, but we want as few, if you are going to have police in school, security at school, it needs to be to the least extent possible in terms of not the amount of weapons that you have. Because the more you increase weapons, the more potential there are for accidents. Statistics back it up that the more guns you have, the looser gun laws you have, the more likely there is for something to occur. And a lot of students, particularly minority students, have voiced this, that they find big, tall guys with guns, they find it very intimidating. And unfortunately, I wish we could have some of them have spoken here tonight because they can speak to that much more than I can. But their relationship with the police is so much different, especially in Rhode Island. It's a very high proportion that are minority. And they really feel, they see the police in a completely different way than white people and white students do. And so I think we really do need to keep that in mind, and I think we need to attack the problem at the root, which is ultimately that we have too many guns, and yes, guns are getting in the wrong hands, but it's not a very difficult, as I said, causation to prove that more weapons results in more violence. And so it needs to be to the least extent possible. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, I think that's you've answered it, and I would hope that maybe Mr. Barr and yourself and some of the other group keep that conversation going, and with the school administrators and the superintendent, so that there may be some valuable input by the end of the session.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for Mr.? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Metz.
Yes. I just want to compliment you. Of course, the two classical senators here are very proud of you. My daughter went to classical, and two of my in-laws, doctors in Atlanta, went to classical, so you represented the school well, as Senator Bois said. But I want to encourage you about the youth participation, because at the height of the civil rights movement, it was the youth doing the sit-ins when people wouldn't allow them to sit at the counters, and they had the Jim Crow laws and all of that. The youth played a significant role, even more so than their parents, because their parents had to be very careful of not losing their jobs or being lynched and all this kind of business. But it was the youth that stepped forward and really kind of propelled the civil rights movement. So certainly don't underestimate that, because it's the same principle but a different time, and I think the youth across America, and what you just expressed very, very articulately, I think that's going to really turn the tide. So keep up the good work, and if I live long enough, I know I'm going to read something about you positive in the future. So you keep up the good work. Very proud of you.
Thank you.